Everybody
Hi,
just
Lisa.
having a great time.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Okay, full disclosure, I'm recording, so keep it clean now, people. Keep it clean. Okay. We have 111 people. I don't know how many to expect, quite honestly. No clue at all. Okay, let me close this out. Let me view the chat instead of the people. Okay. All right, you guys. Can't hear you. Is it just me? I think it's just you, doll, because I've had a couple people respond to me. So that's not helping if you can't hear, right? Let me make a comment. Okay. All right, you guys, everybody have the agenda, I hope. I'm not going to share my screen with the agenda. First thing is academic case manager's role. So let's see if, I don't know if it's going to be Dennis or Sheila. Dennis or Sheila.
I'm going to go first.
Okay.
And then Sheila's going to round it off. So thanks for having us here, Lisa. I really appreciate it. My name is Dennis Bowling. My normal role at the university is Senior Associate Director for Student Success. And so we want to take a moment to talk a little bit about the academic case manager role and give you a rundown kind of what that is. I'll just start kind of at the beginning. It all started with a conversation the president and the provost had about how do we support students who are in isolation and quarantine during that 10 to 14 day period when things are stressful, confusing, and not quite 100% sure what they need to do. And so, so that's when Sheila and I were brought in, and we decided rather quickly we wanted folks to support this who are currently at the university, who know all the resources that are out there, know the ins and outs, know the people, et cetera. So, so we currently have 17 academic case managers. 8 of them are academic advisors. The others are from the Office of the Registrar. Thank you, Lisa, for your team support. From Academic Success Center, Pretty Promise, Horizons, I'm sure I'm missing, Resident Life. So lots of great people who are taking the time, their personal time to help support students in this situation. So we launched basically a pilot program during early start and summer start. And so to get a kind of an idea, so this was before we brought on the 17 individuals. And then from there in August, we kind of released it and rolled it out as we went along. So I thought I would kind of talk a little about what the role is and kind of what they do. So the first stop is when they're assigned a student who is in isolation and quarantine, they do an immediate reach out to the student with a campaign invite for Boiler Connect. That first meeting tends to be kind of a longer planning meeting to discuss, how are they going to connect to classes online, what is going on the next 10 to 14 days that they may need support on, what opportunities are there for them to get help and support in a virtual environment. We talk about resources. We talk about suggestions for them to communicate with their faculty. So really it's a matter of kind of getting a sense of what's going on, where the questions are, make sure they're answered, and make sure they're communicating with their faculty. And from there, they may meet with the person virtually 1, 2, 3, 4 times, depending on the needs of the student, just like in an advising relationship. So that's kind of the idea. In those follow-up meetings, they're really talking about kind of how the connection's going, what frustrations they may have, what's going really well, and then hopefully at the end of quarantine or isolation, they can jump right into their classes and not skip a beat. So we're not discussing adding and dropping. We're not recommending adding and dropping classes. We're not talking about plans of studies. We're not doing major changes or major recommendations or anything like that. It's really kind of talking about the 10 to 14 days and what they need to do connect. So what has the issues been? Well, a lot of their issues have been dealing with technology issues. especially early on. There were some students who didn't have laptops, needed hotspots, and had maybe some issues at P Village with connections. We found that most of that's been resolved rather quickly. So it's not been a too bad of a situation. The other issue has been course access. So navigating Brightspace. Are the lectures recorded? How can I get those recorded lectures and those kinds of things? Communicating with faculty, helping the students, kind of thread that needle a little bit, helping them get settled for during the next 10 days. And really another big issue has been congregate housing. So the large Greek houses, and kind of talking to those students about where they are in that quarantine role, and trying to answer their questions about that. Again, we don't go in the clinical work. That's the nurse case manager's job, but we really want to support in their academic concerns that they have during this time. So that's like a quick overview. I'm going to pass it to my great colleague Sheila, who's going to talk a little about the process.
All right, hi everybody. Let me share my screen here. This has to still get final approval tomorrow morning. And once it is, we can share it out, but I just thought this would help you visualize what happens. So this is true as of about yesterday. But when a student is connected with the PPHC and they're told they have to isolate or quarantine, and if you're not as intimately involved in this, isolate means they tested positive. Quarantine means they had, high risk, close contact. But in neither case can you go to class in person. They are documenting that on a spreadsheet that is shared with a colleague who from enrollment management, who volunteered because this administrative piece was just a huge burden, and so she is helping us all out. So she's kind of managing this spreadsheet. When she sees that students are now in this situation, she is file lockering a list a couple times a day to the Dean of Students office. They will issue absence notifications for all of these students. I'll make this a little bigger. And that's what you get copied on, I believe, are those absence notifications from ODOS. And then either Julie Cox or Brittany Hensey from ODOS are issuing an academic case manager alert in Boiler Connect. So if you are looking at one of your students' profiles, you'll see up in that top right corner a 2. For some reason, because it's an alert that opens a case that counts as 2, even though it's really one thing. So the alert tells me to assign one of our 17 academic case managers. That is actually 2 parts. I make them the owner of the case. And so if you're looking ever in Boiler Connect on the cases tab, you'll be able to see all of this. But then you can also see it on the student's profile. They are now assigned in that relationship. So just like the profile under your success team, it shows who's their advisor, who's their Purdue Promise coach, who's their honors advisor. It'll also say who their academic case manager is. So if you're trying to figure out who can you talk to about any of this, that person will be shown there. So the ACM, we have a pretty standard outreach that we actually borrowed from the Dean of Students Student Concern outreach. So they get a quick message, and again, that's sent through Boiler Connect, so you'll see it. And it includes a resource document that we pulled together, how to do classes remotely. If they also get added to an appointment campaign so that we can try and get them to come talk to us. If we don't hear from them, then a couple days later, we try again, we try one more time. Some students never respond. Others will write and say, I think I'm good. We will keep the case open until the student is cleared to return to campus, so that, because for a while we were closing the cases as soon as the student said, hey, I'm fine, I don't need help. But what we were hearing sometimes from advisors was, yeah, the student thought they didn't need help, but then turns out they needed help. So even if they say they're good, then we're pinging them again in maybe 5 days to just check in, everything's still all right, are you actually able to keep up with your classes? So the student can get help or not. At some point in the future, the student is cleared to return to campus, and the nurse case manager indicates that on this shared spreadsheet. And so Amanda Jenkins is now sending the clearance emails. They will come from an email address, pphc-notification@purdue.edu. It's a standard form. It has the Purdue logo. It's student employee clearance letter. And it just says, to whom it may concern, the above student or employee meets all criteria to be on campus and attend in person for any activities, work, and classes. What we are going to start doing as soon as we start getting them is that email. Amanda will send me a list of all the students who got cleared, and I will put that as a note in Boiler Connect. So this will not ping you. This will not tell you like proactively that your student has been cleared. But if you're curious, you'll be able to look and see if they have that clearance note. Now, again, this is only going forward. So we will not have that for students who had been put on quarantine before this week. And then the student gets the email directly, and it's their responsibility to share that with their instructor. The professor will not hear from ODOS that they're cleared to return, because that's really a medical decision. So the student needs to then pass that along to the professor. There are some different, this happens slightly differently with fraternity and sorority and cooperative housing, but it's mostly on the front end. And it's basically, and this is one issue you might hear about occasionally from students, if a student who lives in congregate housing gets tested positive, it's like they get a head start on contact tracing, and they ask the whole house to just temporarily, like 2-day quarantine. And for that, they don't get an ODOS notification. They get a different letter from Fraternity, Sorority, and Cooperative Life, but it does have the list of students' names. Students are asked to send that to their faculty. This is a point where there's some confusion that sometimes happens, right? Because it doesn't look like an ODOS notification. We're still working on getting clearance letters from that. So it's the front end of these fraternity, sorority, cooperative life. It's a little bit fuzzy still, but we're working on it. And then any student who's actually told they do have to quarantine or isolate longer term follows this same process. In the event, which doesn't happen very often, but if it's a whole house quarantine, then we do not automatically assign ACMs to all 80 people at once because we just really don't have enough people to do that. So instead, Heather Servati-Saib sends a message explaining the ACM role, sends the same resources. She kind of acts as their contact. And then if they want an individual ACM assigned, they can tell her, and then she'll issue the alert. I will tell you just a couple things. Since this is new, prior to this week, there were students who didn't get absence notifications and therefore didn't get ACMs because PPHC couldn't just tell ODOS directly all this like medical information. So it was up to the student to sign a consent form, a DocuSign, and some of them just never did. So if you occasionally hear of a student who tells you I tested positive or I'm told to quarantine and you didn't get an ODOS notification, it might be that they just never signed the consent form. But again, we think going forward, we're going to stop missing those students because we're just getting them all straight from Amanda. That is all I have to share. I don't know if you want to open it up for questions in the chat.
There's some questions. So statewide students, do you know how they are being handled?
We don't assign ACMs for statewide students. I don't know if ODOS is managing their absence notifications or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure if PPHC is getting notification that during quarantine or isolation or doing contact tracing, or if it's done at the site.
Keith, are you on the call? Do you know? Is this something that Dean Bertolini is assuming responsibility for statewide outside of what PPHC is doing?
I am here. I'm trying to remember. Chris Wong Davis and I had this conversation, and I am trying to remember accurately if it was a discussion that she had with Dean Bertolini about needing to manage that at each site. We'd have to confirm that, and we can follow up with the group.
Okay. Okay, Susan Cotterman, we'll follow up with you once we get confirmation. Paige in vet nursing said that she's not getting notifications. She's just hearing about it happenstance. Are those specific student examples that Dennis or Sheila would need to get names or PUIDs to investigate the gap?
I think she answered that when she said prior to this week, there was not a, they're already back. So
Gotcha.
thanks.
Uh-huh. Okay, Morgan's question. What if a student is cleared and never sends the letter to the faculty? Either they forget or maybe they're just trying to continue with the accommodations rather than returning to in-person.
I mean, that point, that's really an issue between the student and the professor, right? They're not going to get another absence notification. Like, it's possible that they will be put in quarantine and then later they'll test positive, or sometimes they get put in quarantine and then it gets extended, especially with these fraternity, sorority, cooperative life houses.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it would be quite reasonable for an instructor to ask a student, you know, it's been a few weeks, have you gotten your clearance letter? To at least bring this question up. But yeah, this is, I don't really want to get into, okay, now that we're getting the clearance letters and putting them in Boiler Connect, that was one goal, is if the instructor asked you, you'd be able to say, oh yeah, I see that they've been cleared. But that's kind of the most we can do.
Okay. Any other questions for Dennis or Sheila? Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Okay, next on the agenda is multiple advisors and the advisor CRF. So I know Sandy Monroe could not be on the call. So hopefully Molly or Christina are on in case I say this wrong. So there is a protocol that they would like to recommend when a student has multiple advisors. You guys would function similarly to the PIN request, right? So if you have more than one advisor, it's important for you to make notes in Boiler Connect. So advisor A knows that advisor B has not been seen yet, or advisor B can see that advisor A has already been contacted. There's notes in there, so I'm good to release and open up the CRF for the student to take action on. So just a reminder to play well in the sandbox. Oh, thank you. Play well in the sandbox with your shared students. Similar note on the CCR, what we have observed is some folks, when a student, so let me back up, when a CCR is submitted and approved starting week 3. So if all the approvals are not in by the end of Friday of the second week, that curricula change becomes effective for the next term. What we are seeing is the advisors want to go ahead and tap out, and so they're removing themselves, but what they're not realizing is they're leaving that student without an advisor active for that term before the new advisor has been assigned for the future term. So before you go in and remove yourself as an advisor, make sure the student has an active advisor for that term. Otherwise, they're just going to be left out in the cold with no one to consult with. Confused? Makes sense? That is, Cassie, it's either one, whether it's in the CCR or whether you're going to SAGAVR yourself. Please make sure that that is leaving one active advisor for the student and not leaving them without one. I don't care which way you do it. Okay, we are moving on to Miss Chris Pass. Are you there, Chris P? Oh, we got questions. Stand by, Chris. How do CODOs factor into that? Same thing. If the CODO is effective for the next term, we don't want advisors changing for the current term. So I guess the best way I can tell you is when you've made the change, whether it's in SAGAVR or it's been processed in CCR, if you look up the student and there's no, in my Purdue, and there's no advisor associated with them in that student information screen, then you've done something wrong and we need to get an advisor added. And if it's not you, if it needs to be someone else in another college and you don't know who that is, please reach out to the advisor and let them know that student needs an advisor assigned. Okay. Chris Pass.
Hello, everyone. I wanted to kind of bring to the group the topic of apply to graduate for discussion. Earlier this week, I met with the pre-reg team because when they go out and meet with you all, they sometimes get feedback to bring back to the group in our office. And so I met with Josie and Sandy because a topic was, it was mentioned in one of their sessions that why aren't they able to pull graduating seniors when we're looking at priority for pre-reg. And I kind of went over some of the pain points that I'm experiencing with apply to graduate. Students currently can apply to graduate for this fall until next week, no, 2 weeks. They have until the end of October here to apply for fall to be considered a December grad, and they currently can apply for May and summer. So just to kind of give you an example, if they were able to, as of today, pull our graduating seniors who have applied to graduate and give them a priority slot, we currently have 1,773 undergrads that have applied to graduate already. So I know we'll see those numbers grow as you all meet with your seniors to plan for their spring registration. But unfortunately, from my end, I see some students waiting until the last minute to apply to graduate in the spring. So we're still seeing people after we've rolled the degree records applying to graduate. And so it makes some of our processes delayed. And it also, like for a virtual ceremony, students are left out of the virtual ceremony if they wait to the last minute. So one of the suggestions, or one of the concerns that advisors shared with Sandy and Josie, is the curriculum piece. And I don't know if all of you are aware that once a student applies to graduate, and if an adjustment is made, I know there's a notation there that says, students, if your curriculum's wrong, don't apply to graduate. Contact your advisor. So we're hoping that many of them do that immediately, and then a curriculum's done, curriculum change is done, and then they do apply to graduate within a few days, and then that's taken care of. But if a student applies to graduate and then a curriculum change is necessary, we get notification when we're processing the CCR request that there is a degree record already. So we're able to make that adjustment on the degree record when we're updating the curriculum record. So I don't know if you all know that we made that correction when we rolled out the CCR form. We didn't have that piece built in, and then we did an enhancement to add that piece. So I'm just kind of wanting people's feedback on when you do meet with your senior group, can you have them immediately, or even while they're with you, apply to graduate? Because the process takes 30 seconds. They just have to log into their My Purdue plan and hit the apply to graduate and look at their curriculum and select which ones they're graduating from, and it's done. So I'm kind of just bringing it to the group for thoughts, because if we start using that as a piece to for the pre-reg group to use, I can also use it for projections, for division breakdowns. Right now, I'm kind of at the mercy of looking at classifications, and sometimes those aren't always accurate in looking for pulling out an actual senior person, because they might be a senior for a 5-year senior. So I'm just asking for thoughts from the group, because I really, we would like to possibly go in this direction if possible, and get some procedures and policies down.
Chris, there's a question in the chat that's she's asking if the advisor knows, if the student knows they want to add or drop a minor, should they go ahead and apply to graduate and then follow up with their advisor, or would you recommend they still start with the advisor first and then go back and update the apply to graduate after?
It depends on what they're doing. If they're wanting to add a minor, to me, that minor should have been done before they graduate. So, and all of us, the candidate coordinators, and all of you that are looking at your degree records for graduation purposes, a senior shouldn't be adding a minor their final semester. So we should be getting and catching those minors way before that semester of graduation. So if they're wanting to remove one, we can do it both ways. So if the student has applied to graduate, say they're applying now, and then after fall grades, that one class that was needed for that minor, they bombed and they just don't want to even finish it, we can go ahead and they can have already applied for spring, and we'll be able to remove that minor because of the notation that we receive when we process the CCR form.
So we're more interested in, as of today, we're more interested in getting the students to apply to graduate before their final semester. And we're willing to do the additional degree record cleanup if there's changes to the degree record even after they've applied to graduate.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that that's a win-win for all of us, that I don't want the curriculum piece to cause a delay in the student applying. So, yes, we do have a notation on the apply to graduate, in the apply to graduate area, that has them confirm or verify their curriculum and not ask them to go forward until the curriculum is updated. So we're hoping with that, it's causing them to immediately reach out to their advisor so that curriculum update can happen within a few days so they could apply to graduate. Versus, I'd rather do it, if that happens, that's fine, but I don't want that to delay the student to apply, because we can still make those curriculum changes, and the student's record would reflect the proper degree record.
Super. And this is a good opportunity to remind the group that the commencement ceremony, when we're assigning divisions, the commencement ceremony the student will be assigned to is the one that they apply to graduate first. So if they're a dual college, whichever one they apply to graduate first is the one that they get assigned to the division to. And that should not be a certificate.
Right. We're hoping that the student, because the primary degree record is what, in the past, we always used to roll the primary degree record first, and then that would be the commencement exercise the student was enrolled in, and then the secondary would roll second. But now it's driven on how the student applies. So they could be a management major and an engineering major, and they select that management program first, but they wanted to walk with engineering, and they selected the engineering second. Well, we've already created, the degree records are created based on the order they apply. So we're putting them in that management ceremony. So if you have a student, when we go back to the traditional setting, that comes to you and wants to know what ceremony they're walking in, you can look and tell that by looking at the degree record order. So whatever sequence 1 is for that term is the ceremony they're walking in. And yes, a certificate should not be the first program that they select. We have students that do that. And we have audits that are built in. So right now, I have several Cognos reports that I'm running based off of curriculum record. So I'm looking at what the degree record says and what the curriculum record says. And then I'm also looking at the certificate being the primary. So I'm hoping that we catch those, but depending on when the student does it, I mean, I run those reports weekly. So sometimes they should be done daily because the students can do this daily during the process. So
the certificates, we would correct the degree order. What if the student applies for their dual degrees wrong and they want it changed? How quickly do they need to notify commencement at Purdue that they want that changed?
As soon as possible.
But no later than? Commencement tab.
When the portal closes, they need to have notified us before the grad portal, the commencement link closes.
Okay.
Because once the commencement link closes, we've locked the marching list in. So that student is on like that example I just gave, that student would have been on the management marching list, and they would have received that engineering diploma at the management ceremony as a dual in summer, or spring, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So if that student really wants to go to that engineering ceremony, they should have notified commencement at purdue.edu before the portal closes so we can adjust the degree records. So when we lock the marching list in, it's correct.
Okay. Rex, to be clear, did I hear saying that have apply to graduate may now become a factor in given priority for registration? No, that is not what I intended to say.
We're hoping. If we could get the apply to graduate process to work in a timely manner, that could be something that possibly down the road could be considered, but it's not how they're processing it now.
Okay.
And Sandy and Josie, correct me if I'm wrong.
Documentation.
Hi, Sandy. So today we don't have a final decision on how the algorithm is going to work for the spring. So there are still discussions occurring about the weighting of the algorithm and moving forward of how to make sure students are getting their schedules. So yeah, we don't have decisions for spring 21 yet, but that will be released as soon as we know. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you.
Julie's asking if we can document this process on the registrar's website. Probably not on the registrar's website, but we'll put it in the commencement, the apply to graduate section. We'll make sure that.
Yes, and we are. I'm going to have my team work on some not policies, procedures. And yes, not policies, procedures on the apply to graduate process. And I'm hoping that we can get that done and then possibly get it, Keith could take it and get it blessed by the provost office, maybe. So we can use that as some kind of governance with commencement and the commencement processes. Mm-hmm. But for now, there's nothing. I know, like a student at IU, for example, they have to apply to graduate almost a year before they graduate. And if they miss it, they have to wait and graduate the next year. Mm-hmm. So, for example, for next spring, they had to have applied to graduate by June 1. So our students are kind of lucky in that way that we're not enforcing some kind of rule like that. We're taking it even into the term they're graduating.
Mhm.
So that's all I have on the apply to graduate piece. I know that if you, after the meeting, if you have another question regarding it, you can shoot an email to me. I'll be more than happy to get back with you and address your concerns if it was missed today. Okay? The next item I have, Lisa, so you want me to talk about that? As you all are aware, our winter commencement is virtual. So we are incorporating commencement boxes into our virtual ceremony like we did in the spring and summer. So all West Lafayette and Tech Statewide students will receive a commencement box if they're a baccalaureate or an associate or a grad level PhD master's student. So they'll all get a commencement box with their diploma cover in it and some Purdue swag, the program, and a letter that indicates has the link for where the virtual ceremony is. So with that being said, I know some of you have helped in the past. I do have, and I've shared the link on the agenda, a sign-up sheet. I would love to have volunteers. I never will turn anybody away. I'm hoping that I can get enough volunteers to come in and we'll get the boxes done and in and out in 3 days. That's my plan. For those that have helped before, they can share, and it's a fun time. You get a lot of walking in, and if you're working all day, we provide lunch. The only thing that's different is it's going to be in Mackey Arena. It's not going to be in the Armory. So we're using the concourse, the East Concourse off of Northwestern, the East Concourse entrance off of Northwestern to hold the circuit where the box preparation will be. So if you're interested, go out and sign up on the sign-up sheet. I will take any time. If you could work a morning shift or an afternoon shift or an all-day shift, I would greatly appreciate it. And as we had mentioned in previous meetings, if you have items your college wants to give to your students for undergrads, we are able to identify the students by college. So if you have something that you're wanting, something little to put in the box, I just need it by the November 16th date, that Monday. I need it sent over to Hubby to my attention, and we'll be glad to put it in the box for you. So I think that's all I have on that, Lisa.
Super. And we really, like Chris said, we really appreciate your help. We cannot do it by ourselves. It's almost as big as putting on the actual ceremonies. So thank you so much for your help with that. Okay. So the link to sign up is in the agenda. Questions. If a student has a hold, who in the registrar's office can we file lock our form to drop a class? If it is an asynchronous class, meaning there is no instructional day or time, you can email the Form 23 to registrar@purdue.edu. If it is part of a face-to-face class, you would need to file locker that to a member of the customer service team. So Jamie Morehouse, Jen Cybre, Ken, Marla, Lori, myself, and that's because of data handling policies. How little would it have to be for inclusion in the box? We need t-shirts. Chris, do you think a t-shirt would fit? I think
Yeah,
a t-shirt would fit, yeah.
I would probably have room for a t-shirt would probably be the biggest thing that we could put in if we rolled it up and put it in there. It would fit in. It's like a shirt box size.
It is.
And the only thing different that we're doing with the box this December is we're putting it in a real cool, not a sleeve mailer. We're using a plastic like a shipping bag to put it in, and it's shiny gold and stuff. So it needs to, but
not
it's
like
shiny
that,
gold.
but
It's not a
yes.
It's like
It's
that.
much cooler.
And so it has to be to where the box would close properly for it to fit in that that sleeve. So we're looking at like a writing pen, a lapel pen, something like that. I know Polytechnic, I think, is going to put sunglasses in their undergrad boxes. Education's putting in a lapel pen and an oath card. Those are the two colleges that I've heard from so far. So if you've got something and you want us to include it, we'd be more than happy to do it. I just need to know in advance. So if you want to send me an email that you're doing it, and so I know to look for it, because I'm working remotely, but I need you to still mail it to my attention to Hovde, and then I know that it's coming.
Leanne Fabrice, are you in engineering, or what college are you in? Because we are only identifying by you're in engineering. So Chris, if because of how the curriculum's set up in engineering, you could go by discipline there only, right?
We're alphabetizing by discipline in, so I would know like all of mechanical, I'd know all of industrial. So we're putting them in alphabetical order by engineering school. So I would be able to pull those out. But the Polytechnic, I can't.
Right.
They're all just under the college.
Right, because of how the curriculum's set up. Okay, so Tammy has a question. Would our team only go in to do their school's boxes? She joined late. So yes or no, it depends. I think it's tough for us to decide where your school is. I think we're trying to do all the undergrad domestics on Monday and Tuesday.
And they get, if you haven't helped before, what we do is the boxes come in order, and we it's been Lisa, myself, and Barb and Steph prior to the day of are spending the weekend before folding boxes together, so when the groups come on Monday they can start the circuit of putting all the stuff in. And once we've got the box and matched it with its mailing label, it's put on a table for pickup, and they get all intermixed. So the person then, when they're taking that box through the circuit, they have to look at different things to find out what goes in the box, would know that if that college has something on the table that's their college unique swag stuff, they would know they'd have to include that in the box. So I can't say, if you're in ag and you want to come just do ag boxes, I unfortunately don't have a way of doing that. You would be helping with all domestic boxes, regardless of college.
Any more questions about box setup? I understand that parking is going to be in the Northwestern garage or at the was it the CVS lot?
No, there's it's called the F lot that is on the other side of Mackey Arena, when it's off of Northwestern. So right after you pass Mackey Arena, on your left-hand side, there's a parking lot, and it's an AB parking only. So if you have an AB pass, you can park there, or you could park in the Northwestern garage and walk to Mackey.
Okay. And we'll have somebody monitoring the door and taking temperatures before you come into Mackey. Yeah?
Correct.
Okay.
So if you volunteer and you wake up that morning and you have any type of cold symptom or any symptom at all of flu, whatever, just email me that you're not coming. I don't want you to be a go-getter and just come in and help, because you're going to be stopped at the door if you have a temperature.
Yeah.
So
thank you all. Okay, we're getting close to the end, so I've got 3 more things I want to make sure I touch base with you on. I have processed, I think it was 37 suspensions from the Dean of Students for students that have failed to comply with the Protect Purdue requirements in the portal. So not cleared for campus, but they're in residential courses. So I've processed the 37. They're withdrawn from their courses. Sheila has assured me that the advisors have been notified of the affected students via a letter in Boiler Connect. It's my understanding that those students, if they're going to get their appeal and get everything done that needs to be done, I could have some reinstated as late as next Friday, but we should not linger anymore beyond that. Yes, thank you, Sheila. Okay, so suspensions, and I may still get another list tomorrow from Jeff Stefancic. I'm not quite certain, but I know there were 37 that I did today. The special registration, or the registration workflow, starting next week, will have the options for students to request a repeat exception registration. So the 3rd attempts, right? They've had their 3 attempts, now they need more. So that is going into production over the weekend. Those will route directly to the registrar team, and that way we can assess, is it a COVID repeat that doesn't need associate dean approval? If it's not a COVID repeat, then we will delegate it to the student's associate dean, who will make the decision within the workflow. I already gave them a heads up some time ago that this is something we were hoping to move to, and hashtag COVID, like everything else, it took some time to get all of the I's dotted and T's crossed to get it into production. So your students, if they come to you now, you can tell them to request it through the workflow and indicate that they've spoken to you. The associate dean may reach out to you via the workflow for information, or you could go ahead and give them a heads up that you've talked to the student. This is not intended to replace any process that the colleges already have in place. I know there are a few colleges that have the students complete an application of sorts to articulate, you know, a kind of reflection piece on why they were unsuccessful and how they plan to be successful. That should not preclude that in any way. It's just to save you all an email sitting in Lisa's inbox waiting to get processed. Now, once the associate dean makes the decision, it's in the workflow and the students can take action. If a student requests a course in which we received an last semester, would the end course be excluded? Rex, I need to touch base with Keith on that to get EPC guidance. If it was a pass, no pass, typically the regs say it has to be the same grade mode. Because of COVID, I need Keith to kind of, I would need Keith to articulate the intentions of the EPC for the grade replacement for the repeat. So I will take that back to Keith, and then I'll follow up via email with the group. The last thing I wanted to share was the immunization holds. I did speak with Megan over at Push, and I understand students are feeling the pain of not being able to complete their course requests because they have immunization holds. There was a bug in the automatic release process that they were unaware of. They've been working for about a week to fix it. She believes that is resolved, and all pending holds that have reason to be cleared should be resolved tonight. But if you have a student who has an immunization hold, they have been emailing students since the summer of requirements and expectations, and they are not releasing holds. And so your students may not be able to come up with a schedule until after the semester ends. I'm not sure what to do with them on that. Megan did say if there is a significant volume, as we've seen, I think was last fall, there was a big hit last fall and the administration made a decision. She's not at this point in the position to make that decision. Keith. Okay. All right, so any other questions that we need to cover here before I let you go on to Keith's super fun meeting? You guys have been awesome. This recording will sit in the chat of this meeting, and then I'm also going to try and download it and post it on the Registrar's YouTube channel. Yes, we do have a YouTube channel. I'll probably put it in the advisors playlist so that if you guys want to share it with a colleague that was unable to attend today, you will be able to share the link with them there. And by the way, if I remember correctly with my research, once we get 100 subscribers, we can change our URL to meaningful and not just the random letters that YouTube assigns us. So if you have any interest in subscribing to the Registrar's YouTube channel, that could facilitate making it a more meaningful URL. Just saying. Okay. Thanks, you guys. Let's all head over to Keith's super fun meeting now. See ya.